And I remember you guys saying on our last chat that at some point you'd probably you wanted to go to Africa. And then it was like a month later, you're like, hey, I'm going to Africa. Like, what? Like, I thought like in 2 or 3 years, maybe. And you
I
were there
know.
for so long, posting all these incredible pictures and videos. I finally messaged you, like, do you live there now? Like, do you
I know.
belong to the bush?
So adorable. Are you moving there? I was
She's gone. She's
so,
gone. Lost Suze.
I love, oh, Case, it was just magnificent. I mean, it was fear factor for me, 24/7, total fear factor, because you're in the bush and you are not protected by anything. I have my little tent, that I was living in, and you're surrounded by nothing but wild animals, poisonous. You just don't know what's going to be out there, and there's no water, there's no toilet, there's nothing. And so when you have to go, you go and you're out by yourself. And I have such a phobia. This is the first time in my 62 years I've been able to say the word snake. Forever I have been, I'm literally phobic of them. And when you are, there's just, you don't know. And so, you're going out at nighttime to go to the bathroom and you don't know what you could be up against, no matter what time of day. And so that was very frightening for me the whole time. But other than that, it was God was with me, and I had the best team that was with me, and it was magnificent. So
Wow.
yeah,
I'll never come.
I didn't think I wanted to come back. I mean, and they said that the Maasai that there was Mateo is my guide. It was his family, and really they want to adopt me and become part of their tribe. And so I'm contemplating going back and building my own little hut where I'll just be living there part-time. It was beautiful. I love it. I just love being there.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was gonna say I'll never complain about staying at like a Holiday Inn Express like ever again.
That's what Chris has always said. That's his roughing it.
They didn't give me enough towels. Unbelievable. It's such a disaster. First world problems. Okay, so I want to hear all about it. I want to hear all about your adventures. They look absolutely amazing. I want to ask you first, though, like most of us in the nutrition world, we kind of already know that there's tribes out there, and there's two tribes in particular that are talked about all the time. There's the Hadza and the Maasai. And everybody knows that the Hadza eat plant-based, and the Maasai eat animal-based. And we talk about how one is healthier than the other. And that's kind of like all we know. And we know that the story is way hugely more complex than that.
So
So
much more.
just on that level, before we get to kind of your travels and everything you went through, what was it like to hang out with both of those tribes? And are our ideas of like this one's plant-based and this one's animal-based, do we know anything about that really?
Not really, no. But
Yeah,
the thing
thank you.
is that it's just so heart-wrenching is what's happening to all the tribes. And I really fear, Case, that they're going to become extinct. The government, the Tanzanian government is just, and this is part of something I want to start a foundation to help them, because they will die. And the Hadzabe are down to, there's 800, but only about 200 to 400 of those 800 are even still living ancestrally. Those half of them are living now in the villages and things, and they're becoming very sick and obese. And those few that are still remaining are trying so hard. And they're one of the tribes that we lived with. They're trying so hard. But the worst part is that so much of their ancestral land has been stripped from them because of greed, with the tourism and big agriculture coming in. They have nothing left. And so they're sharing their hunting grounds now with the pastoralists like the Datoga and the Rock, who are other tribes we live with. And so here they're out, and we were with them. I witnessed this Case. We're out hunting, and you hear the bells, all the cattle and everything, and the donkeys, they've all got the bells on, the shepherds and stuff. And they're all these herds are coming out, and all the animals are being scared away. So they have nothing to hunt. And it was just, we're walking, and they work so hard for everything that they have, just so hard. And we're walking and we're walking. You're in the desert, and the sun is just sweltering. It's just so hot. And they're just looking for anything they can find. And they've got bow and arrows. There's no guns or anything, just bows and arrows. And they're trying to shoot at the birds, and and they're missing. And then we have to go look for the arrows, because these arrows, they have to make everything, And so we're looking for the arrows and things, and they finally got a bird. It's a little tiny, red-billed, hornbilled bird. and not enough for the tribe. And so of course we cooked it, and it was just little tiny bits that we all had. It was really nothing. And I felt bad even eating it. I was like, I shouldn't be taking this, but it's just heart-wrenching. But as you go along, and of course it's just sparse. I mean, yes, there's trees and things, but there's not many. And there's some are berries, and they're very seasonal eating. I mean, anyone, we have to really, Case, we have to really stop and think, we don't have fruit all the time, think about where we live. And yes, I know the Pacific Islands, it was loaded. There was just fruit everywhere you could go, everywhere. But I still believe, and I'm still researching a lot of this, that a lot of things have been brought in from other places. In Africa, the Sasanjo was the last tribe I lived with. They grow tons of fruit, and we'll talk about what happened, what I saw with their health. But I asked them, I said, have you always been fruit eaters? Have you always been really more plant eaters? No. And I said, well, so you brought these plants in from somewhere? Basically, yeah, because they don't grow in Africa. They're only
Wow.
been transplanted, and now they're growing. But the ones where I were living, like out, in the desert region where the tribes are really ancestrally living, the berries are very far and few in between. So there was some that were just green. They were starting to eat them, but I just didn't want to because they weren't ripe yet. And I didn't know how my body, but they did have some that were called the shamuko, I think it was called. I've got it on the slide. And they look like little cherry tomatoes, but they're their favorite. Even above, and here we've always been told that it was the baobab, but both the Maasai and the Hadzabe, they love this fruit. And it's only available a couple months out of the year. And so they're giving it to me. I'm eating it. Wow, it was so bitter and so sour at the same time. It wouldn't be anything I would really rush to have. I was like, oh, and they were just loving and eating them and eating them and eating them. Now I researched it, and it's loaded with potassium and vitamin C.
Wow.
But when you think about the Maasai, who are very much, animal based, they are getting plenty of vitamin C with some of the fruits that they're eating. I mean, this thing is loaded, just loaded. And so they are getting these plants. They are consuming them, not all the time, but what they're doing, they're getting enough of it. They really are getting enough of it. And so I thought that was fascinating. But then to go back to the Hadzabe, they were just struggling. And yet, when I look at it, I think it really depends on, and there's only a few tribes that are left, where the region is. The Hadzabe that we were living with, of course, their little land that they've chosen to live in, they're so close to the Iraq and the Datogas, again, the pastoralists. And so that's causing a problem for them. Now, I know that there's another, which I'd like to do when I go back this summer. I would really like to go and see this other.
Of course, you're going back this summer.
That's my Africa part 2. Mateo, I'm like, honey, can I come back in August? We got it, man.
You thought you were just going to casually slip that in there.
No, but this one though, Case, is going to be where I'm going to I'm looking at a bunch of I mean, it's all between trying to post everything. I'm still so far behind in getting all my posts out, but I'm also researching at the same time because of all these things I realize, my aha moments that they're inaccurate, that we've been told. And so I'd like to go. There's a couple of research pieces that are already out there that I'm speaking with the people who already have gone. And I want to kind of take on where they left off, where they had a mobile lab that was right there that I'm going to take when I go with the tribe in August, where I'll go right with the warriors, Morans, and they're going for 3 to 4 weeks, usually in July or August. And Mateo said August would be best for him. I said, okay. So we'll take the lab with us. And I would like every day throughout the day except I'm gonna take it a little further because I want to do fecal testing as well. And but now I think is I've got to raise that money because I don't this would be and I'm not wealthy. I'm a retired teacher, so I'm depleting my money, but I know that God's got a plan and we'll find a way. So
Amazing.
that's my goal, is to go
That's
back.
amazing.
It's gonna be fun. So, but with the Hadzabe, there's a couple other tribes that are not surrounded by the pastoralists, and I'd like to go and see if they're having more success. It looks like it is when I'm talking, because I've got so many connections now that I'm now texting and talking with so many different tribes, I can ask them questions anytime I want, and it's remarkable. And so I'm hoping that, through my connections now that I'd like to really go and hunt with this group to see if they're having more success, because it sure looks like it. It looks like they are definitely getting more, because the
Interesting.
tribe we had, they were really such slim pickings, and I said to Mateo, I said, we have to go get them. So we went, we found a tribe that was willing to sell me a lamb. So I gave them a lamb dinner, and they were just so ecstatic, And the women, of course, they do eat plants. They do, the tubers, especially the tubers. And a lot of them, they'll just chew on them. And boy, they're loaded with the hydration, a lot of water and the minerals. Case, I was like, wow, it was lovely. It was very, very lovely. But they roast them. They will eat them raw. But it's interesting because they learned that by roasting, it allows them to be able to have to not to work so hard, but they're also getting more of the nutrients. It's releasing the nutrients. It's opening up the cell walls for them and so forth. And it was just profound, because it's only like 5 minutes. They're roasting them very quickly, and that's their chosen one. But when we were out hunting, they were just they see them so quickly. They see like a root and they pull it, and these they were actually eating. And they said they were more like a sweet potato type thing. And so they will eat some of the plants, they will swallow others, they will just chew and just spit the fibers out.
Got it.
But in terms of everyone saying they're more plant-based, they said to me, baboon, the derriere and the brain of a baboon is their ultimate favorite.
Wow.
We didn't see any baboons when we were hunting. When we were driving around, we saw a lot of baboons everywhere. And every time I see them, I see that derriere thing. I'm like, wow, I don't know, but I will try it. I will try it.
Wow.
If I can, I'll be, so that they said meat is everything. And so it's not the fruit that and the baobab was not even in season. It was not in season. And they said they did use them all up. They said if they wanted to walk miles and miles and miles away, there may be some old ones still hanging on a tree, but they said it's just so far that they can just eat the berries that are in
Wow.
season at that time. So
Wow.
yeah.
Well, I can definitely relate to that. If I want to go get berries, I have to drive a mile and a half. There's like 3 stoplights. Terrible. I have to walk to this cold refrigerated area to get, strawberries that are big as the palm of my hand. Sounds
I know.
very, very
They're
similar.
so not looking. That's not how they look in the wild.
Okay. Slightly different. Okay, before we get into your journey, I do want to ask you, now you've done 2 of these. How are you more convinced that your original hypothesis is true, that the further away we're getting from ancestral living and ancestral diets, the worse our health is getting? Or are you finding more exceptions and that's not necessarily the case? And I
No.
would say in particular seed oils.
Oh, Case, it's wherever I go, I just keep, yeah, there's no doubt. There is no doubt, because even the Maasai, who are so adamant about, and Mateo, and he and Tembo, my driver, and then Menendo, he was not Maasai, he was a different tribe. But Tembo and Mateo, they are like my boys. They're like my sons. We are together 24/7, and we could talk about anything. And believe me, I will tell you some of the things we talked about. You'll be like, okay, this is too much information. But and that was so swell. The great thing about it was, for me, is that because they were like my boys, we could just, we could just, I would open up their mouth and looking at their mouth, and I had my fingers in their mouth, and they, they're pulling skin off of my face as I'm peeling, like they're just, you know, it was so funny, but we became so close, and that was the most powerful thing for me, because I could learn so much more from them, because we became so close that we could just talk about anything, and we're talking about details that you can't imagine. But anyway, and I said to them, we would travel between tribes, and sometimes it's hours and hours and hours of driving. And we would stop in villages so that I could go and do my investigating and looking at what's going on in the stores and things. And I posted some of those. And to see the people, and they knew some of these people, and this is the beautiful thing, they're people they grew up with in their villages. And to see them now, they are enormous. And Mateo told me, with one of the girls, he pointed out, he goes, this has only been a year. He said, she's only been gone a year. Look at the size of her.
Wow.
And he goes, why? And I said, honey, I said, they say there's a thrifty gene. And I said, I don't believe it, because I said, this is my philosophy. I said, my feeling is that we, the Americans, our great grandparents grew up in about 1920, 1930s, when Crisco oil and all these oils were coming in. It was gradual. It was so slow. They were still cooking with the wonderful traditional fats, you know, the tallow, the lard, the butters. And so it was just so gradual as that came in. And their bodies were slowly adapting. And then as each one of us, each of our generations have been born, we've been adapted. And now we're at the point of, it's just so much of our diet if you're eating processed food. But when the tribes go, and all of a sudden they're no longer getting their raw milk anymore, they're no longer getting their slaughtered meat anymore because it's too expensive. They have to go to the store and they have to buy what's in there. And that's all there is the same, but it's even worse there because in the Pacific Islands, it was palm oil. Palm oil is about 10 to 12% linoleic acid. Of all the places I've been, this was the worst. I thought Fiji was bad with soybean, about
Yeah.
50. This was sunflower oil, one of the worst, which is 68% LA. Safflower is the worst. Sunflower is just a little below that. Everything was sunflower oil. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? And I'm seeing these. And so I said to him, I said, honey, your friends are coming here and they have just been thrown into it. And I said, this is all they're eating and they're blowing up. You know, I said it would happen to anyone, I believe. I really believe it would happen to anyone because it's just so fast. Now, Mateo, he told me because he's a businessman as well. He also owns his own safari company. And that's where I found him. That's where I found him. And he has an apartment in Arusha, which is like 10-hour drive to get back to where his family lives in the tribe. And he said that when he moved there, there was no raw milk. I mean, all of a sudden he has nothing to eat. You know, he tries to find meat, but it's so expensive to buy. And he said, so he started incorporating foods he wasn't used to, tomatoes. And he said, all of a sudden he's getting sick. He's ending up in the hospital because the gut ache the pain is so bad. And he goes, I'm becoming sick, but I never was before. And he says, and now that he's been with me, he's got this aha moments of all the things that were causing it. And he said, we don't know this. And he said, I learned so much from being with you. And he goes, I can prevent feeling awful again. I won't have to go through this ever again. And he said the time he spent in the hospital, in the emergency room and so forth, trying to figure out what was wrong with him. And now he finally understands. So it's
That
been powerful. It was powerful to be able to see it. It's actually him to point out to people a year ago, they were perfectly fine. Look at them.
that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So this matches pretty much exactly the hypothesis.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and to hear you describe what the South Pacific was like and how horrific that was, and to have this be like way worse. That's
Yeah.
crazy.